Have you ever looked at a family member and realized their love for you had a literal price tag? I did the exact moment my older brother Leo slammed a legal document onto my kitchen table and told me I was no longer welcome in our childhood home. Now, most people would have fought. They would have hired a lawyer, screamed, or at least thrown a cup of cold coffee in his face. But me? I just picked up the pen, looked him dead in the eye, and signed it. No fight, no tears. Just a simple signature. Leo thought he had just pulled off the heist of the century. He thought he was the smartest guy in the room. But what he didn't know was that my quiet surrender was actually the first step into a trap our father had set for him months ago. And trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how this trap snapped shut. To understand why I signed that paper so easily, you have to understand the dynamic between Leo and me. Growing up, Leo was the golden child. You know the type, right? He could break a window, blame it on the wind, and somehow end up with an increase in his pocket money. He went to an expensive college, drove a car our parents could barely afford, and eventually landed a high-flying job in the city. Meanwhile, I was the quiet younger sister, Sarah. I stayed behind. When our dad got sick 3 years ago, Leo suddenly became too busy with client meetings to visit. Honestly, looking back, it was exhausting. I was balancing a full-time job, managing dad's medication, and running back and forth to the hospital on 3 hours of sleep. I can still taste the lukewarm, bitter hospital machine coffee. It was awful. But I did it because I loved my dad. Leo? He only called when he needed to ask dad for temporary loans to fund his luxury apartment and expensive taste in watches. When dad finally passed away last month, I was devastated. But for Leo, it felt like Christmas came early. He didn't even wait for the funeral flowers to wilt before he started talking about assets and liquidating the estate. That brings us back to my kitchen table. 2 days after the funeral, Leo showed up unannounced. He didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't offer a hug. He just threw a document in front of me. It was a quitclaim deed. It legally transferred my 50% share of our father's house entirely to him. He leaned over and said, "Look, Sarah. You've been living in Dad's house rent-free while taking care of him. But now, it's time to be realistic. I need to sell the house to clear some of my investment debts. If you don't sign this voluntarily, I'll drag this through probate court for years. I'll ruin you financially. Just sign it. And I'll let you keep Dad's old station wagon." Talk about a generous brother, right? He was threatening to make me homeless unless I handed him a prime piece of real estate. I stared at the paper. I felt this hot wave of anger rising up my neck. I wanted to scream. I wanted to point out that I had spent my entire youth caring for our father while he was out living the high life. But then, I remembered a conversation I had with Dad just a week before he passed. Dad had looked at me with these tired, knowing eyes and whispered, "Sarah, your brother is going to try to take the house. When he does, let him. Do not fight him. Just make sure you sign the transfer before you go to the lawyer's office." At the time, I didn't understand. But I trusted Dad. So, I looked up at Leo, let out a long sigh to make it look like I was totally defeated, and said, "Fine. If this is what you want, I won't fight you." I signed the paper. Leo smirked, snatched the document like a vulture catching its prey, and walked out without saying goodbye. He thought he had won. But here's the twist. He had just signed up for a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. 3 days later, we were scheduled to meet at the office of Dad's longtime attorney and close friend, Miss Vance. Leo arrived looking like $1,000,000. Literally, he was wearing a tailored suit, a brand new watch, and he even brought his girlfriend along, who was already looking up luxury vacation spots on her phone. He walked into the conference room like he owned the entire building. He didn't even look at me. He just slid my signed transfer document across the polished mahogany table to Mr. Vance. "Here you go, Vance," Leo said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Sarah has voluntarily signed over her rights to the house. It's 100% mine now. So, we can skip the drama, read the rest of the minor assets in the will, and wrap this up. I have a flight to catch." Mr. Vance adjusted his glasses. He looked at the signed deed, then looked at me. There was this quiet, intense pause in the room. You could literally hear the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. "Sarah," Mr. Vance asked slowly, "did you sign this of your own free will?" Do you understand that by signing this, you have completely surrendered all claims to your father's primary residence? I nodded, putting on my best sad, defeated face. Yes, Mr. Vance, Leo made it very clear that it was the only way to avoid a massive legal battle. I just wanted peace. Leo rolled his eyes. Oh, please, don't play the victim, Sarah, you got the station wagon. Mr. Vance didn't say a word. He just picked up a thick, sealed envelope from his drawer. It was Dad's official will. But written on the front in Dad's distinct, messy handwriting were the words, to be opened only after the property deed is finalized. Mr. Vance looked at Leo and said, very well. Since the house transfer is officially signed, notarized, and legally binding as of 10 minutes ago, we can now read your father's actual secret will. Leo frowned. What do you mean secret will? Dad had a standard will. We split the savings, and I get the house because of the transfer. What is that? Mr. Vance smiled. It wasn't a polite lawyer smile, it was the smile of a man who was about to drop a bomb. And oh boy did he drop it. Mr. Vance cleared his throat and began to read Dad's letter out loud. To my son, Leo, the letter started. I have spent the last few years of my life watching you ignore your family. Use my savings for your personal greed and treat your sister like a second-class citizen. I knew that the moment I closed my eyes, you would try to steal the family home from Sarah. You always loved shortcuts. Leo's smug smile instantly evaporated. He sat up straight, his face turning a strange shade of pale. What is this garbage? He muttered. Mr. Vance ignored him and kept reading. Because I knew your greed would blind you, I decided to give you exactly what you wanted. You wanted the house? It is now entirely yours. However, you should have researched the property before you forced your sister to sign it over. You see, our childhood home wasn't just an old house. It was built in the late 1800s. And just 6 months before he passed, Dad had quietly worked with the local historical society to get the house declared a state heritage landmark. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me tell you it's a developer's worst nightmare. Because of the heritage status, the house can never, under any circumstances, be demolished. It cannot be sold to developers to build modern apartments. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The heritage status also came with an incredibly strict historic preservation mandate. By law, the owner of the house is required to maintain the property using original, period-accurate materials. And Dad's house? It needed a brand new roof and a complete foundation stabilization. Mr. Vance pulled out a document from the local historical board and slid it to Leo. According to the city mandate, Mr. Vance explained, calmly, the owner of the property must begin these historic renovations within 90 days. The estimated cost is $350,000. And because the home is now registered in your name alone, Leo, you are legally and personally liable for this cost. If you fail to comply, the city will fine you $5,000 per week. Leo's girlfriend gasped. Leo looked like he was about to throw up. Wait. This is a joke. Leo stammered, standing up. I'll just sell the house. I'll sell it for cheap. You can't, Mr. Vance replied, turning a page. Because of the historic status and the pending repairs, the market value of the home has plummeted. No bank will approve a mortgage for a buyer on a property with a pending $350,000 repair mandate. You are stuck with it. But wait, it gets so much better. Leo was sweating now, his expensive suit looking suddenly very suffocating. Fine, he yelled, pointing at me. We'll split the cost. Sarah and I are 50-50 on the rest of the estate. We'll use Dad's savings to pay for the repairs. Mr. Vance chuckled. It was a beautiful sound. Actually, Leo, we won't. Mr. Vance said. Your father's will states that his remaining liquid assets, which include his retirement funds, his life insurance, and his investment accounts totaling over $400,000 were placed into a private trust. And the sole beneficiary of that trust? Mr. Vance looked at me and smiled. Is Sarah. Since you demanded 100% of the house and forced her to sign over her share, the will stipulates that Sarah receives 100% of the financial trust to help her start her new life. You wanted the property, Leo, you got it. All of it. I almost had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing out loud. The look on his face was worth more than any trust fund. He had spent his entire life trying to outsmart everyone, trying to take the biggest piece of the pie without doing any of the work. And now, he was holding a deed to a house he couldn't demolish, couldn't sell, and couldn't afford to fix. This is fraud. Leo screamed, slamming his hands on the table. She tricked me. I signed this under duress. I want to cancel the transfer. Miss Vance calmly pulled out his phone. Actually, Leo, you brought your own notary to Sarah's house. And you sent her multiple text messages and emails threatening to ruin her financially if she didn't sign. If you try to challenge this in court, I will personally present these messages to the judge. I don't think it will go well for you. Leo sank back into his chair. His girlfriend stood up, grabbed her designer bag, looked at him with pure disgust, and walked out of the room without saying a single word. He was completely, utterly defeated by his own greed. As we wrapped up the meeting, I stood up, adjusted my coat, and looked at my brother one last time. He looked smaller somehow. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by the crushing weight of a $350,000 debt. Enjoy the house, Leo, I said softly. It has a lot of history. With the trust fund Dad left me, I was able to buy a beautiful, modern townhouse closer to my job. I finally got some decent sleep, bought a coffee maker that actually makes good espresso, and started living a life free from the constant stress of catering to a toxic family dynamic. As for Leo, he had to sell his luxury apartment, his fancy car, and his prized watch collection just to pay for the initial foundation repairs on the house. Last I heard, he's living in the basement of our old house, trying to do the historic plastering work himself to avoid city fines. It turns out, Dad was right. Sometimes, walking away from a fight isn't losing. Sometimes, letting a greedy person win is the fastest way to let them ruin themselves. But hey, that's just my story. What would you have done if your sibling tried to force you out of your family home? Would you have signed the paper, or would you have fought them from day one? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of sweet, poetic justice, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got plenty of more stories just like this one coming up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.